Coming up on tonight's programme. A group of parents say they've had enough of school bullying and want tougher laws passed, but will that solve the problem? Scientists have found a genetic clue which could detect lung cancer before it's diagnosed. We'll hear from one of the experts who's shaking up how we deal with the country's most common type of the disease. Is there or was there life on Mars? We'll look at the evidence on Scotland's shoreline. And we've got all the sport with Lewis as well. What's coming up?
Well, after an action-packed Scottish Open last week, all eyes now turn to Royal Buckdale in Southport for golf's Open Championship, with two Scots ready to tee it up at the final major of the year.
And we're hearing about plans for Scotland's first Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Hello, I'm Andrew Black. Welcome to the News at 7. OK, let's start this evening by looking at today's main stories. The family of a 16-year-old boy from Motherwell stabbed to death in Northampton last week have called him kind, strong and an amazing brother to his siblings. A 21-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of murdering Kadeen Paris last Tuesday. Aberdeen University is investigating controversial social media comments by an employee about the death of the former MP Anne Widdecombe. It says Heather Herbert's remarks did not represent the views of the university. Police Scotland says there was no criminality in relation to the comments. A 24-year-old man's been arrested in connection with a sexual assault at the Tyree Music Festival. Officers were called hours after the annual event began. The man's been released pending further inquiries. And a lifeboat crew rescued a man along with his dog after he suffered a medical emergency on a grounded boat off Galloway at the weekend. The Stranraer RNLI crew was called out on Saturday morning near Loch Ryan. Tidal issues delayed the rescue by 9 hours. And for more information on all those stories, you can scan the QR code right there on the screen now. It will take you to the BBC Scotland News app. Now, first up tonight, school bullying is an issue right across the country, and now a group of parents say they've had enough. They want new laws to tackle the problem, claiming the guidance that schools currently get doesn't go far enough because it's not legally binding. But teaching unions are wary that more legislation might increase red tape in schools without dealing with the actual problem, and the government says it's tackling bullying through measures like banning phones from classrooms. Leslie's 8-year-old son suffered months of bullying and physical attacks at school. She told us about her experience.
Numerous physical assaults, kicking in the head, putting heads against the wall, throwing them on the ground, which is dangerous. The phrase I have gotten from every door I've chapped is "our hands are tied." So we can do proactive strategies, we can do restorative conversations, reflection time. Other than that, there's very little they can do in terms of consequences. The solution became to restrict my son. So the rights of the bullies were protected at all costs because of the inclusion policy.
Well, Lorraine Glass is director of the Scottish Government-funded anti-bullying service Respect Me. She reckons we already have a strong system for dealing with bullying in schools.
The guidance as it stands at the moment is non-statutory. The parents are absolutely right. However, what we have is an agreement across Scotland's local authorities as part of the Scottish Advisory Group on Behaviour in Schools, that every authority will present an anti-bullying policy that is in step with that guidance, and in turn instruct their schools to develop their own local anti-bullying policy, which is deliberately designed to make sure that children and parents are involved in developing that policy paper.
So just going back then to that clip we heard of our mum Leslie, she was talking about her 8-year-old son going to school and getting kicked in the head, thrown to the ground and being bullied over a period of months. Doesn't that suggest that if the guidance is not legally binding, then it's not actually working because these things are continuing to happen?
I think bullying is continuing to happen, even with or without the guidance and with and without local authority policy. Bullying is a wicked and complex problem. About a third of children in Scotland are bullied, and it's a relational issue of some complexity. the guidance as it stands is not really designed to look at the type of extreme violence that's been described by Leslie that our little one suffered. It talks about physical aspects of bullying behaviour being things like being pushed and tripped and, more sort of pranks and jostling. It's not necessarily designed for that type of violent behaviour.
Do you think the policy of inclusion favours the bully too much over the victims, which is what more than one parent has said?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would say that every situation is very different, every child is very different, and there will be local operational decisions taken in schools to safeguard and protect everyone, the pupils and the staff, whoever's in that setting at the time. So, and that might call for a temporary, exclusion, but no child who's being bullied should be disadvantaged or to have their privileges withdrawn because of the situation they find themselves in. Absolutely not. So, I wouldn't say that one child is favoured over another. I think schools have got a very difficult task to do when they're resolving a bullying issue, and they know their children best. They're in their school every single day. Well, after the parents, they know their children best. And they will know what's best in that situation, in that moment in time. And that is, as I say, it's an operational decision for school leaders.
Just finally, in terms of the guidance that the Scottish Government says schools are required to abide by, even though it's not legally binding at the moment, do you think that works all fine at the moment?
I think the guidance is strong, and I think the latest iteration of the guidance is the strongest it's ever been. Where we do need, what we need is more consistency across local authorities in the implementation of that guidance. And I think, to the point that the parents are making about making this a legal and statutory obligation, that doesn't always change practice. It can drive compliance, but it doesn't always change practice, and that's what we need to see, better, more consistent practice on the ground. And we know that from the schools that we've worked very closely with, where they get that right is where they have really strong policy position. They know how to prevent bullying, they know how to respond to it when it happens, and they create an inclusive environment where everyone feels welcome and included and involved.
OK, well, thank you very much for coming on the news at 7 tonight. Thank you. Well, moving on now, and every year thousands of people in Scotland are diagnosed with lung cancer. It's the most common form of the disease here. Now, researchers from Edinburgh University and NHS Lothian have come up with a way to catch lung cancer by predicting the genetic changes that cause it. Professor Ashan Akram is one of the people leading the work. He told me more about it.
Just as a little bit of background, lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer-related death in Scotland. And when we diagnose a lung cancer, there are additional information we want to know to decide what is the best treatment plan for any particular patient. So what we've done is we've taken lung cancer samples and under really careful conditions shined laser light on them and then collected the natural light that comes back from the cancer. And using some AI, we can very accurately predict whether they have a critical genetic mutation called EGFR. And that's really important because that determines whether a patient can receive some of the most effective targeted treatments. And we can do that all from one scan without staining the tissue, without needing genetic sequencing, and without destroying the sample.
The idea is that this new way of doing things is better, faster and cheaper than perhaps some of the more traditional lab-based tests.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would certainly say it's potentially faster and cheaper. And actually, one of my colleagues, Dr. Chang Wang, who co-led this work, describes it as potentially taking something that takes weeks in the laboratory and costs thousands of pounds down to minutes and hundreds of pounds.
And also, a lot of people probably associate lung cancer in Scotland traditionally with smoking, and we know that smoking rates are falling because we've had the public smoking ban and people are switching to vaping as well. But what are the other factors that might cause someone to get lung cancer?
Yeah, we know that smoking isn't the only cause. In fact, about 10% of the cases we diagnose are in people who have never smoked. So we know genetic mutations, such as the types we've been looking at in this study, increase your risk of lung cancer. We know environmental pollution also does that as well. So there are a range of different causes of lung cancer, although smoking has been the biggest one.
So in terms of the bit of work that you're doing then, what kind of stage is that at now, and when might you be hoping to be able to use it on a wide scale?
Yeah, so we're at the stage where the science is very strong. We've got really good proof of concept and we've got good accuracy. And next, we really want to do is looking forward into a clinical study prospectively, which means testing it in real clinical pathways, understanding how it can fit into the complex pathway that is the NHS. And we know that NHS services are stretched, but it's also innovative and looking for ways to make things faster and cheaper. So I can't quite put a precise timeline on it, but I do want to move this forward as quickly as possible.
OK, well, thank you very much for coming to speak to us on the News at 7 tonight, and all the best with your research going forward.
OK, thank you for having me.
OK, now let's consider a variation on an age-old question. Not is there life on Mars, but was there? The BBC Sky at Night programme has been looking for answers, and they just might be right here in Scotland. Scientific research suggests strange markings discovered on the red planet do look like ones found on similar rocks in East Lothian. Dr Claire Cousins from St Andrews University is on this evening's programme. In a moment, we'll interrogate the evidence, but first of all, let's find out why she's a bit sceptical.
So having seen these leopard spots on Mars, is that it? Have we found life?
Sadly not. It'd be nice if it was that easy. These reduction spots have been known about for years and years. You know, they've always been a nice kind of geological curiosity, but it's always just been assumed that they've been formed by biology. Because why not? You know, we're on Earth, life is everywhere. You know, we see this concentration of organic matter in the center of these reduction spots. So it's a very obvious thing to think, well, life has just clearly played a role in making this. It's not
We've
an
never
unusual
thought to
thing.
question it, actually.
We've never needed to question that.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the programme tonight. So, based on the evidence then, should we not be getting too excited about the possibility of life on Mars?
I think we should still be getting excited. This is probably the closest we've come to seeing evidence of something that could plausibly be generated by biology. At this stage now, though, I think what we need to establish is whether or not it could be produced by something else. And if it was produced by biology, how we can, you know, what next steps can we take to really prove that?
What are your theories then about the leopard spots, as you call them, having these similar features on Mars and East Lothian, just in case people think it's like something out of a Steven Spielberg film?
So firstly, regardless of, you know, whether it's Earth or Mars, you know, we're typically thinking about life as being a microbial life form that's made these, you know, and rather than anything sort of bigger. So we're thinking about microorganisms and, you know, the impact they have when they get deposited within sediments that then ultimately become the rocks that we then explore, whether it's on Mars or whether it's on Earth. So our ideas at the moment are trying to understand how much active biology is required to create these features within these rocks. Is it just their presence as, you know, sort of dead organic matter that's become sequestered into those sediments, or can it actually just be any kind of organic molecule that's just causing this chemical reaction? You know, doesn't actually have to be biological in origin. So these are the ideas that they're currently working with at the moment.
And a lot of this has come from this the rover expedition to Mars, which a lot of people have got really excited about. What kind of evidence or findings have you gotten quite excited about to do with that mission? And also, are there things that are still unexplained?
Yeah, I mean, both. I mean, certainly with the rover missions that we currently have on the surface of Mars, you know, these have really demonstrated to us how Earth-like early Mars really was. You know, we see a lot of similar environments that we're all very familiar with, you know, lakes, flowing rivers, all of this, it's all recorded within these rocks, you know, which are billions of years old on Mars. So we're sort of really delving back into Mars's very early history when it was a very different place to what we see now. You know, now we see it as this very, you know, sort of, you know, somewhat boring, kind of dry, barren, and very inhospitable world. You know, it actually was very different in the past. And so that's why it's exciting to look for evidence of life recorded within these very same ancient rocks. You know, if it was similar to how it was on Earth, you know, then why wouldn't life have evolved as it did here on our own planet? So it's a really exciting time to be exploring Mars with the kind of technology that we can actually send to the Martian surface now. We can ask these much more complicated questions.
So do you think that the question posed by David Bowie in Song back in 1971 is still as relevant today as it was then?
Absolutely. If anything, it's even more relevant because we have the scientific basis now for asking the right kinds of questions and for looking for the right kinds of life forms that have been buried in the rocks for billions of years. You know, they're long dead. You know, we're not looking for life on Mars that's alive now. We're thinking about life on Mars when it was, 3-4 billion years ago. So we're looking at ancient life, and it's really exciting now to be able to answer these really big questions because we now know what to look for. We know where to look for it as well. You know, we're looking for evidence of life in the right kinds of rocks that are indicative of these past environments on early Mars that were very pleasant for life to inhabit. So we have a very different approach now to what we were doing perhaps, back in the 1970s.
Claire Cousins there, and that Sky at Night programme is on at 10 p.m. on BBC4. Still to come in the programme, we've got the weather with Chris, but first of all, let's get some sport, and here's Lewis.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Good evening there. We're going to start with some golf tonight, and it was a special weekend at the Renaissance Club for South Korea's Tom Kim, winning the Scottish Open, his first title in 3 years. Well, this birdie at the 16th secured the win as he finished on 17 under par. Open's Robert McIntyre finished 2 shots behind, tied for third place. He was in the hunt at the start of the final day, but 4 bogeys in 7 holes put a dent in his challenge to become champion for what would be the second time in 3 years, despite a better showing on the back 9, including this remarkable eagle at the 12th.
It was a good week, third place finish. Having a chance going out today, having a chance going into the back 9 today, even though it was a bad start. Wasn't to be, but yeah, again, just look at the positives, try and take the positives. It's a good week, third place. Yeah, good signs. Coming home here, playing the Scottish Open that I dreamed of as a kid, and having a chance to win and having the crowd behind you is unbelievable. I mean, yeah, just that walk on that par 3 was special. But yeah, just a shame I couldn't give them something to celebrate.
So now it is all about the big one, the Claret Jug here, the 154th Open Championship at Royal Birkdale. It gets underway on Thursday, but a lot of the players are already on the practice tees. Bunkered's head of content, Malcolm McEwen, is there too, and I spoke to him earlier, and before we got on to the Open, I asked him what he thought of last week's events in North Berwick.
It was one of the most compelling editions of the Scottish Open to date. I think it had all the right ingredients going into the weekend. For the most part, it delivered. Yes, it would have been lovely to see Scotty Scheffler, the world #1, a bit more involved than he ended up being. His first missed cut in, a generation or two. But Tom Kim, a very worthy and indeed a very popular winner of the event.
Absolutely. Let's look forward then, because we're in link season, the Open is upon us, and you're sat there at Royal Birkdale just now, Michael. That's the setting, and as always, so many potential storylines. So you tell me, what are the key things that you're looking out for this week down in Southport?
Well, I'm really excited about the golf course because it has been very, very hot and very, very dry here for a long time now. We've had quite a few wet Opens in recent years. We're not going to have that this week. The course will be firm, fast, fiery. For me, the other really compelling storyline is, can an Englishman finally win this championship? They are on God knows how many years worth of hurt in this championship now, but there's a lot of players coming into the tournament in a rich vein of form. Tommy Fleetwood's the local hero. He's from Southport, so he'll have a huge following and a lot of goodwill amongst the spectators.
Ryder Cup teammate Bob McIntyre would love to muscle in and make it his story, though, as would potentially Jack McDonald, although that is a little bit of a stretch, let's be honest. But the two Scots have very different storylines, don't they, going into this one, and are great examples of what this tournament can throw up.
It's the best thing about it, isn't it? It is the Open. Anybody feasibly could qualify for the championship. And you're quite right, Jack and Bob are at very different stages of their careers and the arenas that they're playing on. Bob, for me, has all the raw ingredients to win this championship. But for me, it's going to come down to a matter of temperament. We have seen plenty of examples of Bob running hot. It's already hot here, by the way, but we've seen plenty of examples of Bob running hot on the golf course. And I sometimes wonder if that saps his energy and it's more of a hindrance to him than a help. I equate it to Andy Murray at the equivalent stage of his career. We all remember Andy's outbursts after pretty much every single point. But notice how when he became a bit more of a stoic figure, more of a zen character when he teamed up with Ivan Lendl, that's when the Grand Slams started to flow. That's when he took the next step in his career. It seems to me that Bob's at that point just now, so if he can continue with the outbursts and become a major champion, we won't complain. But to me, from the outside looking in, it feels like that is an area that he can address. And if he does, why not Bob holding the claret jug on Sunday night?
Why not indeed? Michael McEwen's from Bunkered speaking to me there. Now, Scotland ran in 4 tries against South Africa in Pretoria on Saturday in the Nations Championship, but probably should have got more as they missed the chance to beat the Springboks at home for the first time. It was this try by Ben White that brought up the bonus point for Scotland, but it still wasn't enough as the back-to-back world champions pulled away for a 42-28 win. But former Glasgow Warriors scrum half Colin Gregor says the disappointment at not beating the world champions shows just how far Gregor Townsend's team have come.
It's almost crazy that you're thinking, yeah, they're disappointed to miss out on a maiden victory in South Africa, given the run of form that South Africa have been on. But I think some of Scotland's attacking game was outstanding. I think some of the tries they scored in periods they defended very well. They dealt with the physicality South Africa threw at them, almost surpassed it at times. So yeah, huge number of positives for Gregor Townsend and the Scotland team to take out of the game.
One day they'll manage to beat South Africa, I'm sure.
Fantastic, yes, one day. Thank you very much. So let me also ask you, as a big music fan, we're about to talk about Scotland's first Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Do you have a top nominee you'd like to suggest?
I've had a wee think about this. Why not just get Big Country in there? Love a bit of Big Country.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, an amazing shout. I'm sure it's well up there on the list. And I suppose that we all know about the US Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. A lot of famous Scottish people have already been inducted into that, like people like Annie Lennox, David Byrne as well from Talking Heads. But now there are these plans for a standalone, homegrown Scottish Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. A bit like Lewis, we've been out talking to a few people and have got their recommendations on who they'd like to see in it.
Jim Kerr, Charlie Burchill, both got to be greatest Scottish band ever, Simple Minds, ever.
I mean, I like Rod Stewart. He is one of my favourite singers.
So I'd probably put in the Cocteau Twins and Juicer and Mary Chain. Yep.
Probably Deacon Blue for me. Yeah, it's been the biggest, I think. I maybe like Big Country, and so I'm a wee bit older, I think. So it's like a wee bit older music, but all the young ones that are all out just now are all great as well. So,
got to be the Proclaimers. Magic, went to see them last week and they were fantastic. KT Tunstall, she was great too. Magic, really enjoyed it.
Although one band does, and I'm trying to think of who they are. And I would walk 500 miles. I know this one. The Proclaimers. I think they're a really good band.
Well, Bill Gordon is behind the vision for this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He told me more about it.
The seeds for Scots Rock were planted over a number of years where we did road trips with our friends Brian and Romain into the southern states of America, usually starting in Chicago. Then we would go down to St. Louis, to Memphis, to Clarksdale, to Nashville, to New Orleans. And what really blew us away was in every one of these places, there was a place where you could celebrate the heritage, the musical heritage of that particular state, whether it was blues, R&B, soul, Creole, you name it, they absolutely had it taped and done. And it really exposed for us a huge cultural gap in the sort of the landscape in Scotland, in that, you know, we have these phenomenal bands, both, you know, past, current, and no doubt future, but we don't have a home where folk can go and visit and celebrate and see behind the scenes in the same way that they have shown us so vividly in America.
So I suppose when you think about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a lot of people think about this big awards ceremony that goes on in the US every year, and they get these bands and musicians inducted. But there's also this big sort of museum place that they have in Ohio. So in terms of the Scottish one, you want to take over this space in Sauchiehall Street. What kind of things would you like to see in that museum?
We've had a good look around the CCA. We were with our architect Fraser a while ago, and it's quite a sort of it is a space that's tailor-made for a concept of this nature. Firstly, there is a full-blown, fully spec'd up performing arts space with standing space for about 300 to 350 people for gigs, for live gigs. As you say, it's so important that Scots Rock isn't just a museum, but is also a place that nurtures the future talent and also helps to shape the future talent. And I'm not just talking about the musicians, I'm talking about the lighting technicians, the sound technicians, the graphic designers, the computer programmers who get in behind all this. There's a whole panoply of artistic endeavor that goes behind it. And within the space, we see a mix of a static exhibition, temporary exhibitions that last for 3 months, such as an exhibition on sort of the Bells Hill bands, or an exhibition on Alex Harvey or whatever. We also anticipate there being meeting spaces whereby young people can meet potential producers, get a handle on what's involved behind being a producer, and to see if there's any way they can start working together. We also feel that there should be somewhere where folk can also get themselves a bit of merchandise, etc., etc. And also within the CCA, there is a smaller auditorium seating about 100 people where you'll be able to sort of do book launches, new album launches, master classes, you name it. I mean, anything that basically galvanizes the talent of the future, gets them out of the sort of bedrooms and small rehearsal spaces, and gets them into somewhere where they can really come face to face with an organization that is prepared to also help them go out on the road.
OK, that was Bill Gordon there. Now, let's go on to the weather. It's very nice, Chris. Not for everyone, of course, this warm weather.
Well, it's going to be sunny and warm for much of this week, Andrew. Thanks very much indeed. Some lovely pictures, as ever, from our weather watchers. Thanks for sending them in. Lovely sunrise there from one of our weather watchers on the bridge of a ferry, by the looks of things, in the North Minch. Many areas having some blue sky and sunshine. And there's more of that on the way over the coming days. Let me show you why. It's all thanks to high pressure, which is sticking with us for about a week, perhaps a little bit longer, and that will keep conditions dry and settled, and for some, warm, if not hot. But with winds coming in from the north or northeast at times, there will be a feed of cloud, particularly around northern and eastern coasts. So first thing tomorrow, for many, it's a dry and bright start, but towards the Forth Valley there and up towards the northeast, around these coastal parts, there'll be some cloud, some low cloud, bit of har in the mix. And that'll burn back through the day. Towards the west coast, though, lots of sunshine from sunrise onwards, and actually we hold on to those dry and fine conditions, and temperatures in the west reaching the mid-20s. In the east, with the breeze and the cloud a little bit cooler, there will be some breaks in the cloud for the Northern Isles as well, but fairly cloudy compared with elsewhere. Wednesday, high pressure with us once again, keeping things dry and settled. And it's rinse and repeat, if you like. There will be the areas of low cloud and mist and murk around some North Sea coast, burning back through the day. The best of the sunshine and the highest temperatures in the west, perhaps the mid to high 20s, and even in the east, maybe a degree up on what we'll see tomorrow. Thursday, we do it all again with that cloud, some areas of low cloud, many areas though dry, sunny and warm, if not very warm. We need 25 degrees or higher 3 days in a row in the same spot to reach heatwave threshold, and we will see a heatwave for some parts of the Highlands, West Central Scotland and the south. The extended outlook shows that high pressure holding on, but the winds a little more northerly through Friday and Saturday. That means more in the way of cloud around northern coastal parts, and at times drifting away down the west and the east coast here in Scotland, sunny inland. Similar picture you can see for the start of the weekend. Still some very high temperatures across parts of England, but you can see here in Scotland around about the mid-20s. But this is the outlook, and it tells you everything you need to know. Dry and sunny for many, and in a few spots we will see some warm, if not very warm, weather with heat wave conditions likely. That's the forecast for now.
Chris, thank you very much for that. And that is it for tonight. I'm back again tomorrow with Reporting Scotland News at 7. Hope you can join me for that. Meantime, have a great evening. Bye for now.